Welcome, luminous soul. I'm Luna Celestine, and tonight we step into a sacred current that flows far deeper than the moonlight itself. The strawberry full moon on June 11th is not simply a celestial event. It is a pulse in the spiritual bloodstream of your lineage, a moment when what has been buried in silence begins to rise through the cracks of tradition. This moon does not just glow, it reveals. And in its tender, glowing light, you may find yourself feeling emotions that seem older than your memories, reacting to words that shouldn't carry so much weight, or sensing an invisible thread tugging at your awareness. These are not coincidences. They are invitations, because this is not just about the moon, it is about what it stirs within. The inherited stories, the unspoken agreements, the emotional blueprints passed down like heirlooms, some sacred, some suffocating. And as we journey together tonight, you'll come to understand that this full moon doesn't ask for celebration. It asks for honesty. It doesn't want you to break ties. It wants you to see which ones have quietly bound you. So stay with me as we uncover the deeper truths hidden beneath this sweetness and prepare to step beyond the patterns that were never truly yours. You may believe you are making your own choices, walking your own path, shaping your life with your will alone. But beneath the surface, the roots of your lineage are whispering, pulling, echoing through your actions in ways you may not yet see. The fears you carry, the way you hesitate before speaking your truth, the patterns you repeat in love, in conflict, and silence. They are not all born from your own experiences. Some of them were woven into your spirit before you even had language, passed down through generations like invisible threads stitched into the fabric of your being. And though some of these threads carry wisdom and resilience, others carry wounds disguised as loyalty, beliefs dressed in the language of protection that were, in truth, limits in disguise. Not every tradition was built to honor your becoming. Some were born in survival, in pain, in eras where shrinking was safety and silence was the only way to endure. These patterns, repeated long enough, begin to feel like love. But they are not love. They are rehearsed obedience passed down as if they were sacred. But sacredness is not in repetition, it is in truth. And if something asks you to stay small, to remain silent, to abandon your intuition for the sake of being accepted, then it is not a tradition, it is a spiritual trap. This full moon, bathed in the sweetness of its name, is not here to simply bless you, it is here to awaken you, to help you see which customs were rooted in fear, not love, which family phrases carried spells of suppression, which rules you followed not because they felt right, but because questioning them was never an option. And now, as the light touches those buried codes, you are not being asked to reject your heritage. You are being asked to awaken within it, to honor the love while releasing the limitation, to choose what continues and what ends with you. This is the quiet revolution of healing, not loud, not dramatic, but profoundly sacred. For Leo, whose fire is lit by purpose, heart, and legacy, the strawberry full moon arrives not with the sweetness its name suggests, but with a deeper test. One that asks you to place the inheritance of your spirit on your tongue and taste what has truly fed you, versus what you've only swallowed out of habit. This is not the harvest you expected. This is the moment where the ripest fruit exposes what has been festering beneath its skin, and you, radiant lion, are being asked to discern with your entire being not just what you've received from your lineage, but what you've internalized without question. Because not everything wrapped in love was pure, and not every family story was meant to be yours to carry. This moon casts its light into the shadows of your legacy, revealing the silent agreements, the ancestral codes, the emotional contracts that have shaped your identity more than you realize. And Leo, with your deep longing to lead with authenticity and love without restraint, this lunation may stir an ache in your chest, a realization that some of the beliefs you've inherited have made your light dimmer, your roar quieter, your joy conditional. This is the moon that presses its glow against the mask and whispers, "Whose voice is that? Really?" It's the cosmic invitation to see clearly what rituals, expectations, or roles you've taken on out of duty, out of fear of disappointing, or simply because you were never shown another way. But now, as this moon rises, the mirror is clean. You may find yourself drawn to question the roles you play within your family, the traditions you once defended, the behaviors you repeated without thought. You may feel a subtle discomfort during what once felt familiar, words that now taste bitter, laughter that suddenly feels hollow, gestures of affection that no longer land. That's not you being distant, it's your soul rejecting what no longer aligns with your truth. This is not a rebellion against your roots, Leo. It is a declaration of self-honoring, because the moon is not asking you to sever. It's asking you to separate the sacred from the inherited. And that, beloved, is the first true act of becoming. Something subtle begins to shift, Leo, not in thunderclaps, but in the quiet tension that settles in the spaces where you once felt at home. You walk into the same rooms, sit at the same tables, hear the same familiar stories, and yet something feels off, like a melody that's just slightly out of tune. The jokes don't land the same way. The rhythm of conversation stumbles where it once danced. Your body senses it before your mind can name it. A strange dissonance, the growing distance wrapped in routine. This is not coldness, not rebellion. It is the energy of your evolution, brushing up against patterns that no longer fit, the expanding frequency of your soul, creating static in a script you've been reciting your whole life. You may feel it most in the glances that linger too long, or the comments that feel suddenly loaded, even when spoken casually. Maybe it's the way someone always interrupts, the way your voice gets quieter in certain rooms, or the way a particular silence now feels suffocating instead of safe. This moon is peeling back the curtain not just on your inner world, but on the energetic contracts you've signed unconsciously. When you agreed to keep the peace by swallowing your truth, to smile when you wanted to scream, to nod along when your spirit said no. Leo, your heart was never meant to perform. It was meant to lead with clarity and courage. And now that clarity is rising. There may come a moment, innocent, fleeting, but unmistakable, when a family member says something that hits like lightning. A phrase you've never heard before, a story that aligns eerily with your recent dreams, or a casual remark that somehow answers the question you hadn't dared to ask aloud. It won't be dramatic. In fact, it might happen in the middle of a laugh, in the lull between courses, or during a moment so ordinary it almost passes unnoticed. But you will feel it, Leo, in your chest, in your spine, in that place where truth lands and lingers. And in that instant, all the quiet knowing you've carried will crystallize, not as suspicion, but as confirmation. What's rising within you is not resentment, it's remembrance. You're remembering the version of yourself that couldn't speak back, the child who felt too much, the teenager who learned to dim their light to keep the family harmony intact. But harmony built on silence is not peace, it's suppression. And now, you are no longer willing to shrink into old shapes. This full moon brings not confrontation, but clarity. It offers you the power to witness without reacting, to honor the truth without needing to explain it, to love your family while no longer pretending. And Leo, this is the kind of strength your ancestors dreamed of, one that doesn't destroy the legacy, but reshapes it through awareness. There's a peculiar ache that surfaces when familiarity no longer feels like home, Leo. And this strawberry full moon brings that ache into focus with quiet precision. As you stand among people who have known you your whole life, you may begin to feel like a visitor in a story that was once yours. The cadence of conversations you used to follow without thought now feels rehearsed, hollow, as if everyone is playing a role they've forgotten how to enjoy. Your laughter doesn't rise as easily. Your smile feels delayed. It's not that you've become distant. It's that you've become aware of how often you've folded yourself into the mold of family expectation, aware of how often your brilliance was dimmed in exchange for harmony. And suddenly, even the warmest moments feel laced with a quiet tension, like a dance you no longer know the steps to. You may not be looking for signs, but one will find you. Perhaps in the middle of dinner or during an ordinary errand, someone in your family, without even knowing why, will speak a sentence that lands like thunder in your chest. A phrase you've never heard but have always known. A detail that aligns eerily with the dreams you've been having. A sudden reference to a long-forgotten relative, or an offhand comment that mirrors the very emotion you've been untangling in silence. They won't realize what they've said, Leo. They'll move on, unaware of the ripple they've created. But you'll feel it, because in that moment, everything unspoken inside you will find its name. Then, deeper still, something ancestral begins to stir, a recognition, not just of your current path, but of a path left incomplete. You may feel a magnetic pull toward the story of someone in your lineage who didn't quite fit, whose name was always spoken with a strange tone, or whose presence seemed to linger in memory more than in conversation. Perhaps they were the one who dared to break a rule, who saw through the illusion too soon, who tried to rewrite the script and was quietly exiled for it. You've never met them, or maybe you did, but their energy has been orbiting yours like a silent echo, and now, under this moon, you begin to understand why. Leo, your awakening is not just yours, it is a continuation. You are not only healing your own wounds, but stepping into the unfinished sentences of those who came before you. You are the voice they never got to raise, the truth they never got to tell, the light they never got to live out loud. This isn't coincidence. This is cosmic inheritance. You've been chosen not to carry the weight, but to release it, not to follow the same map, but to redraw the terrain. You are not breaking the family apart. You are breaking the silence that kept the family small. And that silence, Leo, was never your destiny. You came here to roar, to radiate, to remember. And in doing so, you become the bridge between what was suppressed and what is now possible. The story may have started generations ago, but you are the chapter that rewrites the ending. And this moon, this luminous, aching, undeniable moon, is your moment to remember who you've always been. The most tender revelations rarely arrive with thunder, Leo. They come like a tremble beneath the joy, soft, sudden, and undeniable. You may find yourself surrounded by warmth, in a room filled with laughter and familiar faces, when something inside you shifts without warning. A toast is raised, someone's hand touches yours, a kind word is spoken, and instead of ease, you feel a lump in your throat, not from sadness, but from clarity. Because in that moment your heart recognizes the truth behind the affection, how many times you had to earn it, shape yourself for it, trade parts of your soul to keep it close. What once passed as love now reveals itself as conditional loyalty, dressed in ritual, sealed with silence. You're not angry, you're not bitter, but the tears well anyway, not because the memory hurts, but because you see it clearly for the first time. You see how deeply you've yearned to be loved without shrinking, how long you've played along with scripts that never felt like yours, and how gently your spirit has been asking again and again to be free. This wave of emotion doesn't crash during chaos. It arrives in peace. It breaks open, not when you're fighting, but when you're finally soft enough to receive the truth. And Leo, this is where the courage you were born with rises. You begin to understand that becoming who you truly are is not a betrayal of your family. It is the very healing your lineage never thought possible. You are not severing the root, you are untangling it. You are not rejecting your people, you are refusing to pass down the patterns that kept them confined. You, radiant soul, are not here to wear their mask. You are here to shine through the parts they had to dim. And in doing so, you don't just free yourself, you give their forgotten dreams a voice. This moon asks you to choose presence over performance, authenticity over acceptance, legacy over loyalty. Because the most sacred inheritance is not the silence, it's the choice to end it. And if your voice shakes, if your truth makes the room fall quiet, if your glow feels too bright for the old stories to hold, know that you are not wrong, you are not too much, and you are not alone. You are the living proof that love does not have to come with condition. That joy can be clean. That peace can be yours without sacrifice. And so you take the first true breath, the one that doesn't apologize. You sit in the same room, but you are no longer the same. The version of you that stayed small to keep the family comfortable is no longer in charge. In its place stands the lion who remembers. You were never meant to inherit the chain. You were meant to melt it, to alchemize it into gold, to create a new story, one rooted not in fear but in freedom, one that begins now, one that begins with you. And then, Leo, in the most unexpected moment, perhaps as someone pours you tea or while laughter dances through a room that once felt like home, it comes. Not with thunder, not with confrontation, but with a silent wave that breaks open your chest. You smile because everything appears perfect, but something inside you remembers how many times love was offered with a condition quietly stitched beneath it, remembers how often you softened your edges just to be held. And as the warmth of the room swells around you, the truth rises too, that not every act of love was free. That sometimes affection was currency, that joy came with unspoken contracts. And for the first time, your soul refuses to sign. This is not an explosion. It is a sacred unraveling, a quiet storm disguised as clarity. You may excuse yourself from the table just to breathe. You may feel your eyes sting as someone tells you they're proud, not because it hurts, but because you finally hear the price you once paid for such words. And Leo, you have always longed to be seen for who you are without shrinking. Now, that longing becomes a vow, because you understand now. Becoming your true self is not a betrayal of your family. It is the breaking of the loop they never knew how to end. It is the liberation your bloodline was never allowed to reach. Until you. So when your hands tremble and your heart swells with the weight of this knowing, remember, this moment is not about rebellion. It's about truth. You are not destroying what came before. You are honoring it by refusing to repeat it blindly. You are carrying the love forward, but leaving the silence behind. You are the first voice after generations of whispers. You are the light that does not apologize for its brilliance. And this, beloved Leo, is the core of the message. The strawberry full moon does not arrive to wait patiently at your door. It comes to reveal what no longer fits, to slice through the roots that suffocate, to place the truth, whether bitter or sweet, upon your tongue so that you may finally taste what is real. It does not ask you to preserve what has decayed. It asks you to name it, to feel it, and then, if you're ready, to write something new, because this time, the pen is in your hand. And the story of your lineage? It begins again, with you. As we come to the close of this sacred journey beneath the strawberry full moon, I want you to remember this, Leo. Nothing about your awakening is accidental. You didn't stumble into this moment. You were led here, by the whispers of your ancestors, by the quiet ache in your heart, by the patterns you were brave enough to question. And now the light has found you, not to expose, but to liberate, not to shame, but to set you free. You were never meant to fit into a mold that silenced your truth. You were born to break cycles with compassion, to love without conditions, and to rise in your fullness without guilt. And though the path ahead may feel unfamiliar, your soul knows the way. Trust it. Trust the feeling in your chest when something no longer aligns. Trust the tears that come without warning. Trust the freedom that follows when you finally say, "This ends with me." Thank you for walking this path with me tonight. If this message stirred something inside you, know that it's because your time has come. The moon has ripened, the veil has lifted, and your voice, it matters more than ever. If this resonated, I invite you to share your reflections below, or simply type 515 to align with this wave of transformation. I'll be here, always, to walk beside you as you continue becoming. Until next time, I'm Luna Celestine, and your story is sacred. Don't be afraid to live it out loud.